it's worthwhile to establish a niche. And people often say, well, heck, a niche is surely cutting down the size of my marketplace. And it's quite the opposite, because a niche, if you dominate it, it can become something. Certainly when I first started out and I wrote my first book about self-hypnosis and my big in-depth 21-disc audio program about self-hypnosis, I was doing everything I could to dominate that. There were a couple of books out there that had ruled the self-hypnosis niche for a period of time, but it really got me a foothold in. Since then I've worked on other things and other areas, and at the moment we're in the process of doing this thing with the marathon running niche, and it's we're inundated with interest. Now, it doesn't mean that I only work with people that are marathon runners, and only marathon runners should bother coming and seeking out my advice. It just means that I have a depth of credibility there. People still come and see you about other things, but you've kind of enhanced some credibility. And again, like I said, people being themselves rather than pretending to be something that they think they should be and that they ought to be. This is. I mean, I could probably have consumed the entire period of time we've got scheduled for this discussion talking about just that kind of thing between therapists that do well and those that struggle, and when we spend a lot of time on our mentoring program online, running through hours and hours of tactics and strategies and the things that we do. I don't know how obvious it is, but me personally, I tend to be a major airhead, and that is my head is often up in the clouds, and I need some structure and some systematic way of how we go about things. And so, each day I'm engaged with some of the processes and systems that we have that continue to propel our business, and those are the kind of things that we talk to therapists about.
Well, if you were to look at like how you've developed, and when you're saying like you're a bit of your head in clouds in regards to that, if you were going back to day one of your learning and knowing what you know now, what would be some of the philosophies that you would have, and what would you spend your time learning?
I would have looked at evidence-based processes.
Evidence-based processes.
Yeah, the evidence-based processes as far as hypnosis and hypnotherapy is concerned. I think there is a proliferation of, it's not to say that I am some science, evidence-based Nazi, that won't look at anything unless it's empirically evidenced. Not at all. And in fact, there are flaws, as far as my stance on evidence is concerned. I'm not a positivist. A positivist is kind of like a natural scientist. I'm much more a realist or an interpretationist as far as my epistemological stance goes on research. But I would look at evidence-based processes simply because they're more credible. And that is, you verge on, especially if I was going to be a young therapist all over again, you verge on being perceived as a quack if you start talking about, if I encounter lots of hypnotherapists, for example, that incorporate the law of attraction into what they do. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not poo-pooing the law of attraction, although I have written about it in some depth on my blog and had hearty debates about, facets of it that I think are absolute nonsense and ridiculous for anybody to be beholden of. However, there are facets of it that I think are wonderful and lovely and are wonderful sentiments. However, if that was the driving philosophy of my therapeutic approach, it would easily get perceived by conventional medicine in particular, and the kind of clientele that I want to attract, as being quackery, potentially. Now, so I would say that as far as my career is concerned, I'd much rather be evidence-based and have that kind of a philosophy and explore a more perhaps spiritual approach in my own life. Now, for anybody that's now thinking, he clearly wears a white coat all day, and he knows nothing of reading between the lines. I lived on a kibbutz. I've spent a huge amount of time on an ashram. I've done Buddhist treks, and I lived for a short period of time with the Chippewa Cree Nation, a shamanic nomadic tribe, and have done all kinds of experimentation as far as different things are concerned.
Well, it just sounds like you're looking at everything from multiple angles, which, as you said before, is a sign of an intelligent therapist in a way.
I think so, and it's intelligent to be eclectic, but I would think that if I was going to look at what kind of a philosophy would dominate my work and what I would spend my time learning if I had my time again, I would start with the evidence-based stuff and diverse from there, so that I had a good, solid grounding and basis. I understood the rationale of what underpinned all the various different interventions and facets of hypnosis and hypnotherapy.
And where have you found the best resources for that to be?
There's a couple of great evidence-based training schools out there, but also, I continue to be a research student. I'm a PhD student at the Open University, and one of the beauties of being a PhD student is that you get access to journals.
Yeah.
I'm a member of and really good friend of the chairman of the Register of Evidence-Based Hypnotherapists and Psychotherapists. When you're a member of them, you also get access to every single archive of the International Journal of Experimental and Clinical Hypnosis. And this is dating back to the 60s. And, this is gold.
It's a lot of reading.
It's a lot of reading, and it's a lot of academic reading, which isn't the most stimulating. It's a great way to catch some Z's, but it's also people. I don't think people often realise the depth and breadth of the research base that exists for the field of hypnotherapy, because there is a monumentally huge amount of it out there. If you want to look at the stuff to do with regression, if you want to look at the stuff to do with psychotic disorders, which generally we tend to steer away from, if you want to look at and get credible evidence for all the kind of controversial type of discussions that are often had on forums and in public hypnotherapy environments, then this is the place to go and gen up on it. Those kinds of places. There's a huge amount of resource, and it's well worth going and having a look at the proper depth of academic interest that there is and resource for this field. And in fact, I think it's responsible to do so. I think it's responsible that if you're going to work with a member of the public, that you're making the very best decisions based upon the very best depth of education that you can offer. Absolutely.
And where would people find you? Where would be the best place to find you?
www.adam-eason.com. That's Adam Eason with a hyphen in the middle.com. If you want to hear me kind of wax lyrical about this kind of stuff, then my podcast, I do tackle a large amount of controversial debates from the hypnotherapy field in my podcast, which is the Evidence-Based Hypnosis Podcast. You can find a link either from my site or you can just track it down from iTunes or somewhere like that. It's got a photograph of me when I was about 14 on there. So not the most accurate of representation of who and how I am today.
Nice.
But it also, but we cover the little 10-minute discussions where we cover in depth a lot of the kind of things that I've touched upon today. For example, a lot of Ericksonian hypnotherapists believe that people respond to hypnosis literally. And I talk about lots of famous models of the hidden observer, and lots of famous researchers and lots of big discussions from the field. And I know this, to a lay person, it might initially sound very, very dull. And it's certainly not the thing that I would start discussing if I wanted to impress the girls. But it is something that I think can be fascinating, can be fun, and I do my very best to poke some fun at it all, as much as I can throughout the process. And those people that follow me at Facebook or follow my tweets know that I do also like to adopt a good, solid, tongue-in-cheek approach to things, and I like to have a huge amount of fun with everything that I do.
Absolutely. Well, I've certainly enjoyed this interview, Adam, and I really thank you for doing it.
Well, I've enjoyed it too, and I hope that that this website and this project of yours here goes on to be a massive success, because I think it's lovely for people to invest some time aiming at benefiting and broadening the reach for others. So good for you.
Believe me, Adam, I hope it's successful as well. Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, and I'll certainly be checking out your blog even more.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye for now.
See you later then. Bye.